So I told Mr. Marcos and his people, forget me, Mr. President. I am through with your politics. Hindi na po ako sasama sa inyong kalukuhan. Nagtayo kayo ng isang lapian, ang pangalan KBL, Kilusan ng Bagong Lipunan. Mali po kako yan. Kilusan ng mga bingi at mga luko-luko. Hindi na ako sasama dyan. Ako'y tapos na. I told them, I am through with politics, I said. I would just want to live in peace now. But I wrote Mr. Marcos and I told him, while it's true, Mr. Marcos, I said, that after my 8 years in prison, I have lost appetite for office. I am no longer seeking the presidency of this land. I'm not seeking anymore any office in this country. But believe me, I said, when I tell you, that while I have vowed never to enter the political arena again, I shall dedicate the last drop of my blood to the restoration of freedom and the dismantlement of your martial law. It is with this thought that I sought an audience with Mrs. Marcos last December 16. After I was released or given a medical furlough, I was in prison, as you know, for 7 years and 7 months. Then on March 18 or March 19 of 1980, while they allowed me to run and they made a little corral for me, they brought me out between 11 and 12 o'clock. Every day, they brought me out to exercise. On that particular day of March, as I was walking around my little corral, all of a sudden I developed a chest pain. And then the pain was so terrible that I sat down and I asked my guard to massage my chest and asked him to bring me back. I called for the army doctors, they checked me and they said, muscle spasm lang po yan, that's nothing, just take a rest. And so I rested. But after 40 days, I was so weak, I could not even take a bath, I was shaking. And I told my doctor, I said, look doctor, I don't know, I said, your diagnosis or its accuracy, but I am very, very weak. Please bring me to the Philippine Heart Center and get me an examination. That doctor, fortunately, on that morning, after 40 days, on April 10, 28, his name is Colonel Bayani Garcia, came to my office and said, yes, Senator, sabi niya, I will now recommend that they bring you to the Heart Center because apparently you're not getting well. Mr. Marcos has just arrived from Honolulu. I will make my recommendation. This is the officer who's been taking care of me for 7 years. He's a full colonel. He's the commanding officer of the Bonifacio Station Hospital. He was the one who diagnosed that I only had a muscle spasm. At 9:30 in the morning, he saw me, of April 28. He left my room, and I wrote a letter, and I told them, if you do not bring me to the Heart Center, I will be constrained to appeal to the Supreme Court. And so he said, no, sir, ako na pong bahala, I will talk to the Commanding General. At 1 o'clock that day, a knock on my door came, and I was given a letter from the Commanding General. I thought it was the approval of my request. When I opened the letter, it was handwritten note, and it said, my dear Senator Aquino, it is with deep regret that I inform you, your doctor, Colonel Bayani S. Garcia, died of a massive heart attack an hour ago. If you were in my place, here is your doctor telling you it's a muscle spasm, tapos bigla siyang namatay. How would you feel? And so, my friends, I sat down stunned, but then I wrote back to the general and I said, much as I'd like to go to the Heart Center, it is my request that I be kept here in my cell until my doctor is buried. Only after he's buried will I go to the Heart Center, I said, because in deference to him, I would like to wait for his burial. I did not realize that this doctor had a sister in Germany and a brother in Saudi Arabia, so it took 7 days before they buried him. Finally, on May 5, 1980, almost midnight, they took me from my cell and they brought me to the Heart Center. That was a Monday. The doctors in the Heart Center met me, took preliminary tests, and they told me, Senator, they said, tomorrow we will begin the battery of tests. And so I slept, but I could not sleep. That was the first time I was brought out of my cell in almost 7 years and 7 months. And there were beautiful nurses, and the first time I was seeing women in 7 years and 7 months. And naturally, I was watching my heart as it was palpitating. And so I woke up at 6 o'clock that following morning on a Tuesday, and they brought me down for my x-ray, and they brought me back. And there were these beautiful nurses around, and they say, "Oh, Senator, ikang ganon. Nangayayat po pala kayo." Ako, "Thank you. You know, I used to be very big." But as I sat down after that x-ray, I was just about to sip my coffee. All of a sudden, I got hit again by a terrible chest pain that was almost choking me, and my arm was getting paralyzed. So I told the nurse, I said, "Miss, please bring me to bed." So they brought me to bed, and they put all of those gadgets. And all of a sudden, the needles were squiggling. And they called the doctor. The doctor looked at the tracings, and then after 1 hour, they came back to me and said, "Mr. Senator, we are canceling all tests." I said, "Why?" "Because we already know what's wrong with you." I said, "What's wrong with me?" "You have blocked arteries, and you must undergo an emergency triple bypass, otherwise you may die in 6 days to 6 months. I told them, "Where can I have my operation?" "Dito lang po, sa heart center." And that's the heart center of Imelda Marcos. And I asked, "Who can do the operation for me?" The director said, "Ako lang po. There are 2 other assistants if you want, but I'm the only one performing in the center." He was the director of the heart center, handpicked also by Imelda. I said, "Doctor, pagpaliban mo na ka ako. Thank you na lang." I said, "If they cannot operate on me in America, please bring me to my cell." Well, the reason why I did not want to be operated in the Philippines, I have one weakness. I talk in my sleep. Kung bigyan ako ng anesthesia at nagdadadala ko ron, sabi ko, gusto kong patay si Marcos, mamamatay na ako doon. You know, I don't know what I will say. The moment they put me on anesthesia, after all, I've been thinking of many things for the last 7 years. I might be saying many things, and the doctor will be recording that, and they said, "Bangungot na muna ito, mahasama pa lang mabuhay." But the truth is, I did not want them to touch me in Manila. And so there was a crisis. The general came to me and they said, "Well, Senator," he said, "if you don't want Dr. Aventura here, why don't you give us the name of your doctor in America and we will bring them to the Philippines. Gastos po ng gobyerno." I said, "It's too much of a hassle." "Hindi po, don't worry, we'll bring them. Name any doctor you want. We will get you operated here." I said, "No. If I cannot be operated in America, then bring me back to my cell." The Deputy Minister of Defense came to my room. He tried to talk me out of my decision. I said, "No." And so finally he said, "Are you willing to write a letter to Marcos requesting to be brought to America?" I said, "Yes." Siguro kang ganun, mas maganda kung mag-iwan ka ng 2 anak mo, parang maniwala na babalik ka. And so I wrote my letter to Mr. Marcos and made 2 covenants. That if I leave, I shall return. And 2, that while in America, I shall not speak out against his regime. And I also said, I will only bring 3 of my children with me. That's also true. But of course, the other 2 were already abroad. And then, my friends, that was a Wednesday, when I wrote that letter, all of a sudden, on Thursday morning, May 8th, my wife visited me early in the morning, and she told me, the hospital is crawling with Metrocom cars. Guards all over the place. Baka kami magbibisita sa'yo. Then all of a sudden, my guards started jumping, putting their barong Tagalog, hiding all of their guns. I said, "Tama, may darating na VIP." And then, lo and behold, the beautiful one ascended into my suite. She came, and she was really beautiful. She has not aged. And she sat down and said, "Naku, Ninoy," sabi niya, "I'm sorry to see you like that." Hindi ko lang nasabi sa kanya, kayo may kagagawan nito eh. At any rate, I had my bathrobe and I was like this, and she talked to me and we talked to her, and she was very nice about it. And then all of a sudden, after 1 hour, she said, "Would you like to go to America?" Abay ka ko, sure. Oo. Eh sa tuwa ko, tinanggal ko pa yung aking kwintas, kako anting-anting ko ito, iwanan ko nakaprepare dito. Palayasin na niyo ako, pumunta niyo ako sa Amerika. Sabi niya, there's a plane leaving at 6 o'clock. You can be in that plane. Ay kako, thank you. And so my friends, she ordered General Ver to instruct the Foreign Office to issue us passports. They called up the American Embassy to get us visa. My wife had to rush out to look for some money. And finally, at 2:30 in the afternoon, they brought me out of my room from the hospital, brought me to my house in a van. I never saw Manila, therefore. They gave me 30 minutes in my house to pack, to take a shower, put me back on the van, bring me to the airport, put me in a 747, and out of the Philippines.